Hey everyone, welcome to my new channel, Reality Report with Ryan. For those that already know me, welcome. For those of you that don't, what you can expect is political news, both the US and some abroad. You can also expect commentary on how the woke mind virus is destroying the mental health of a certain group of people. I think we all know what I'm talking about. I also react to crazy lefty TikToks sometimes, and I also react to interview on the street where people are interviewing crazy lefties and just going over the crazy things that they think about and say. So if you're not already, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and lose your mind with the rest of us. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I don't know if you've heard this yet, but the press 3 option on the 988 hotline, which is a hotline for the prevention of self-elimination, is being removed. That was the LGBTQ plus option that I think basically takes you to the Trevor Project, so that you can get specialized care for LGBTQ people, as if the people at the regular 988 hotline would shun you away and say, go ahead, go do it. Bye, see ya in hell or whatever. That's not really, I don't think that they employ people like that. I think that they're perfectly capable of training people to talk to everyone. I mean, this is a self-elimination prevention hotline. Why would they not be trained automatically to talk to everyone? It really doesn't make any sense. And I really think that the Trevor Project is just freaking out and creating publicity, and all of these other activists around it creating publicity to prevent themselves from not receiving the government, the federal funding that they've been getting. So I want to look at some of these TikToks of these white liberals like reading off of scripts and stuff, acting so concerned. Nobody seems to be looking at any statistics, so I also want to go over some statistics as well. So let's get into it.
We have some very serious news this evening. The Trump administration is ending specialized services for LGBTQ youth and suicide prevention for LGBTQ youth. Right now, individuals can contact the 988 suicide prevention line. And typically there are specialized services for LGBTQ youth. Well, now the Trump administration is working to end those services beginning July 17th, so in just about 1 month. This will have devastating impacts on a whole host of LGBTQ youth around the country who rely on 988 specialized services in times of crisis, in times of need. And folks, this is happening, and it's happening whether or not Congress passes any legislation. This is the Trump administration's decision to end this specialized program, and it's going to impact thousands of LGBTQ plus youth across the country. Spread the word so more people are aware of what's about to happen. Also, subscribe to my Substack at the link in my bio to support, and as always, follow along for all the news you need to know about.
Notice how he doesn't mention the fact that the 988 hotline is still up and the Trevor Foundation is still open, active, and receiving millions of dollars a year in funding. And I also found out how much their CEO makes and some of their other top staff. So I'm going to talk about that later. But you're going to notice that these people they're not even mentioning the fact that you can still call the Trevor Project directly. They have a phone number. They have their own LGBTQIA2S+++++ Rainbow Mafia hotline for the prevention of self-elimination. They're not mentioning that. So what are they doing? What are they doing exactly? They're just trying to freak people out and create fear. And I'm going to talk about that as well later, because there's some thoughts that I have around that regarding the ideation of self-elimination and why it hasn't gone down with progression. So, but first I want to watch some more of these white liberals tell us how fearful they are while they read off of scripts. This guy I don't think was reading off a script. He actually, this is Aaron Parnas. He does a lot of things on camera, so he's used to this. Now, these next people, though, are clearly just reading off of a script that was basically just given to them. And also, I don't know if any of these people are actually members of the LGBTQIA2S+++++ mafia. I really don't even know. And for those of you that are new to me, this is not really an important part of me, but it's going to come up in conversation and you're going to wonder, or maybe you won't because a lot of times people can just tell, but I am a center right leaning gay man. And that's why I'm mentioning the fact that these people are straight white liberals because straight white liberals treat all minorities as if they are all of our saviors and they have to use their massive powers of white straightness to make sure that they champion the fight for all of us. The Meanwhile, they will never listen to anything that I have to say because I don't agree with them. But here, let's listen to the next one.
We have some breaking news. In case you missed this, the Trump administration is shutting down the LGBTQ plus suicide hotline option A service that saves lives. Starting July 17th, the LGBTQ plus callers to the National 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline will no longer have the option to press 3 or text PRIDE to reach counselors trained to help them. The administration claims all callers will now have to go through a general pathway, but advocates warn this could cost lives because LGBTQ plus youth face much higher rates of suicide and need specialized support. Trevor Project says it handled nearly half of the LGBTQ plus contacts through this service. Now that's gone. They are calling this a dangerous step backward. The cut comes after Trump's new budget removed $33 million in funding specifically for LGBTQ plus mental health services. This isn't just a funding issue. This is a signal at the time when LGBTQ plus kids feel targeted in schools, in laws, and even in their own homes. This administration is making it harder for them to get help. Advocates say this move could lead to thousands of crises without support. The general hotline still exists, but the one that understood LGBTQ plus struggles. That's being erased. Follow me.
What at the end of this, after we listen to 2 more TikToks, I'm gonna go over how much they're struggling with their surplus of income. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to tell you exactly how much they're struggling. At least this guy actually said that the Trevor Project hotline actually still exists while not even directing people to it, clearly just generating fear off of this script that he's reading. I'm assuming, and yes, I'm going to assume, we're all free to assume because we have our First Amendment rights. I'm going to assume that this man is straight and he has no idea about what exactly he's talking about. He just knows that the Trevor Foundation project still exists, but he has not looked at any statistics. He has not looked into how much money the Trevor Project generates without federal funding. He has not looked into how much their top echelon makes. He has not looked into whether or not there's any data showing that the Press 3 option, which was only created in 2022, I don't know how we survived before 2022. I just don't even know. This must have just self-elimination increase of LGBTQ people must have just started in 2022, which it didn't. Obviously, I'm just being an asshole. But these people have not looked into any of this. I have. So let's listen to someone else. Another script reading white liberal who now she made a video at first, didn't mention anything about the fact that the Trevor Project still exists, that there's a direct line. You just have to call it. And like the last guy mentioned, how is calling 988 waiting for somebody to pick up, which they don't always pick up, just so you guys know. Neither does the Trevor Project. I have seen people that have called the Trevor Project and not received any answer whatsoever. And I don't believe that that's because they're not funded. And we're going to get into that after these 2 TikToks. But this woman clearly created a video creating fear, didn't mention that there's still a hotline for them to call. And like I was saying, why would it take less time for you to call one number and then have to be transferred to another line to a completely different organization? How is eliminating that middleman going to prevent saving lives? Like, this doesn't even make any sense to me. Maybe if it makes sense to any of you, maybe you can give me a little insight. Please make it educated insight. But this person, she's responding to someone who replied to her first video about this, creating fear. It says 988 still takes LGBTQ calls and will continue to do so. Exactly. The Trevor Project still exists as well. This is false info and is incredibly harmful to spread in this manner. Please call if you need. So, yeah, this person is pointing out the fact that you're literally saying that all of this is gone and being taken away and Trump bad, Republican bad. You're saying that this is anti-LGBTQ. No, this is a measure to eliminate some federal spending that is not necessary. It is not necessary.
Because my intent was never in that video to
speak up, lady.
Like the entire 988 hotline is shutting down. What I stated in that video is that the LGBTQIA plus youth special.
Yeah, she's just reading off a script.
Down by the Trump administration on July 17th, 2025. Nowhere in my video did I state that the 988 Lifeline.
What that tells me is you are not passionate about what you're talking about, and you really don't even know what you're talking about. If you have to read off of a script, either you're an extreme perfectionist, not to mention these people aren't even doing it right. I looked into how to do it, but it's just not my style. It's just not how I am. But you are supposed to stand far enough away from the camera to make it so that you can't necessarily tell that you're reading off a script, even though I would still be able to tell. But no, you clearly don't even know what you're talking about, lady. Just get off of it. Get off the internet. Bye. Bye, Jessica. Bye. So this guy brought up a very, very good point. So this is not somebody like the last people that we just watched. This guy is asking a very, very good question. And I've actually talked about this in the past. It's related to LGBTQIA2S++++ in the military. I've talked specifically about trans people in the military because you are on hormones, most likely, dysphoria, gender dysphoria of any kind, dysphoria, dysmorphia, any mental disorder that goes against like biology and reality. That is a mental disorder. That is not something that we should take lightly. It comes along with depression, anxiety disorders. It is somewhat related to schizophrenia and personality disorders, narcissism, etc. Like, so my stance is, if you cannot join the military because you're on anxiety medication or depression medication, why would you be able to join the military if you have a mental disorder that causes you to reject your physical body, your real being? Like, why would you be allowed to join the military, carry guns, go into combat? You may not even have your hormones. If they're on hormones, they're on the cocktail of hormones, hoping to level them out. What if you end up in a situation where you can't see a doctor that knows how to do that, or be able to test it, or even be able to have your medications? That doesn't make any sense, and it shouldn't make anyone feel safe. I understand that there are a lot of people that have successfully served in the military for a long time, trans people. And I understand that if your gender dysphoria is completely under control, I get it. But if you don't have access to your medications and things, then other mental breaks can actually happen. So this guy makes a really good point about this hotline, and all the people that are crying over it. And like, why, if you're so concerned and you understand that this community has a heightened level of self-elimination ideation, that is a severe mental stress. Why would you want to then go give all those people guns and send them into combat? I'm just throwing it out there. And yes, straight people can also have levels of not as high, whatever's been proven about the LGBTQ. And they try to say that trans youth that are a higher risk, but I've looked into those research studies, and it really turns out that the ones that are more trustworthy, more thorough, have controls in them instead of just one group of people, they actually show that it's about the same as gay people. So, but which is a heightened, it's a heightened level. However, there are, of course, straight people that suffer from the same thing. But I mean, we have proven science research that shows that gay people are at a heightened level. So I want to throw that out there and acknowledge it. But since we have like evidence, this guy brings up a really good point, in my opinion.
In the military. So here's some of the big news from yesterday. Now, obviously, to some people, this is a very big deal, and they say, people are going to die! And sure, that may be true, but you also have to remember that those same people who say that these people should be in the military. So, I just need somebody to explain something to me real quick. How do you throw a fit about this hotline going down while also saying these people should be in the military? So here
I mean, I don't feel like he's wrong. How do you throw a fit about all of these people needing a hotline to prevent them from ending their lives, but then advocate for all of them to be allowed in the military? Is intelligence in the room with us? Is there any like sense of logical thought anymore with these people? Because I think that's a very valid question. Maybe you disagree, I don't know, but I think that's a very valid question. You're acknowledging that there is extreme mental disorder, extreme mental health issues in this entire group of people, so much so that we need to give government funding to an independent organization in order to prevent that from happening, while simultaneously stating that we should let all of them into the military, no questions asked. Like, just go at it. Here's your assault weapon. Go into combat. Let's go. Try not to blow your head off, though, because, you know, we let you in here under good faith. Try not to do that, okay? Now be good and go on. So now I want to get into some of the information that I found about all of this. All right, so I asked a bunch of questions. This is how you do ChatGPT, y'all. And you, like I said yesterday, you also want to look at where the information is coming from, because that'll explain the bias if there is any. I asked how many calls to the LGBTQ specific self-elimination prevention hotline option have been received since implementation, which was in 2022. It's not been around that long. It says approximately 1.3 million calls, texts, and chats through the 988 hotline. To break it down, a pilot launched in September 2022, then expanded to 24/7 service across calls, texts, and chat by March 2023, which already exists anyway, but okay. From then until now, LGBTQ plus callers have made about 1.3 million total contacts. Okay, great. Let's stop repeating. Okay. I said how many calls in total to the hotline as a whole taken regardless of the LGBTQ option or not. More than 16.3 million. So more than 16.3 million calls came to the 988 hotline, and only 1.3 million of those were LGBTQ plus, or actually used the press 3 option. How much do you want to bet? And there's no studies on this, because this is an anonymous hotline. So I understand that they cannot actually, there's no accountability. There's no research. There is no insight into anything about these hotlines. But I would guess that a lot of those people are probably LGBTQIA2S+++. Okay, so they didn't even use the press 3 option. All right, it's possible that they were all straight, but I really don't think so. Maybe it was people that didn't want to wait until the press 3 option and got someone on the phone and needed to talk right then to the person that answered first. That would be the most logical thing to do, would it not? Let me know in the comments. Is that logical? Or is it more logical to make them wait for a second person that's going to probably do the exact same thing? All right, so there we go. We got that. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, all right. These figures include all interactions regardless of transfer to a specialized service. 16.33 million. But we know, you see, this is where you have to use critical thinking. Some of this comes from news sources, but we know that only 1.3 million of those went to the press 3 option. So we know that. So don't try to lie to us, ChatGPT. We're smarter than that. So let's see. Then I asked, have LGBTQ self-eliminations gone up or down since the implementation of the LGBTQ option? This is where we get into the fact that there isn't evidence that LGBTQ plus self-eliminations have systematically increased or decreased directly as a result of the 988 press 3 option. And then it goes into the thoughts and behaviors remain high among blah, blah, blah. I do not think that it is 41%. I think it's more like 20 something percent. So they're even, this is almost the rate that they use to claim that trans youth are at a higher rate. Why are we using this? Because it's pulling from these like Vox, it's them.us. It is pulling from these news articles that are giving this false research information or terrible research information. I've looked over the research before. I'll have to make new videos about it on this channel because if I use my content from my last channel, even though it's my content, YouTube may flag it as reused or repurposed material and shut down my new channel. So I'll have to make new videos on that. But I've already looked at it and most of the research is crap. So, specialized LGBTQ plus 988 service saw increasing demand from July 2023 to May 2024. Okay, so it's increasing, not decreasing. And I'll get into that in a minute. Actually, let me just say it right now. So, here's my thought process. As we progress, okay, when I was growing up, and I know in some areas you're still bullied for being gay or whatever these kids are calling themselves these days. But I know that you can still be bullied for it. But also you have gay and trans and they, thems in every single TV show that exists now. You have so much representation. You had all of this pride stuff throughout your school systems. You had teachers talking about it. You had teachers teaching kids about being gay and trans and they, thems. You had all the representation in that I would have never thought would ever happen. And some people like it and think it's a good thing and progressive. I personally think it's terrible and it's bad for the gay people because all that we ever wanted was just to blend in. We didn't want our sexuality plastered all throughout Target, the grocery store, and all throughout schools and government buildings and lit up like a freaking light bulb all across America. That's not what we necessarily wanted. But my thought is, with all this representation and progress, and we have all the same rights as everyone else, why hasn't this ideation gone down? Why has it just gone up? My hypothesis, because the Democrats use it as a tool. They stand for nothing. They have no morals. All that they stand for is power, and they don't want anyone to know that. So the only way that they can get people to vote for them is to claim that the other side is seeking power, and that's all that they want. And then use fear against minorities and use that fear with white liberals with their little complex that they have, their little white savior complex. to get votes. Like, and they're doing that, and they're creating the fear. Donald Trump has not once said that he wanted to eliminate gay marriage. Donald Trump has had pride celebrations at some of his buildings that he owns. He held a gay wedding at Mar-a-Lago. Like, he has openly stated that he is in support of gay marriage and the gay community, and he always really has been, longer than most Democrats, longer than Barack Obama, longer than Bill Clinton, longer than Joe Biden. In fact, I really don't believe that those people are accepting of gay people. I think it's all a front because they like to use minorities. So that's the thought. Why hasn't that ideation gone down with all of this progress? Because the Democrats won't allow that. They won't stop the fear mongering. And so they keep these people scared. And that's why with all the progress and all the equal rights, you still have increasing percentage of self-harm ideation. Because these people are scared. Because the Democrats made them that way. So now I got that out of the way. Let's see. There is no publicly available data that ties hotline access directly to changes in self-elimination rates. So how do we know it exists? And I understand you can't start asking for personal information because then some people won't call in. But at the same point, you can't argue to continue to give federal funding, tax dollars, to the Trevor Project. Not to mention that there's people that don't agree with being gay. They think that it's a choice, whatever. They can think whatever they want. But they also have the right to not have their tax dollars fund an LGBTQ organization. And also common sense will tell you that it's not necessary. It's only been around for 2 years. So there's no information on that. So they have no real actual argument other than to say, well, you don't know. And my argument to them is, you don't know either. All that I know is that the ideation still exists and nothing is changing. In fact, it's just going up. Maybe up or down like 10% each year. But it's not really changing that much. Okay, so then I asked, who is the CEO of the Trevor Project? James Black, who is a they, them, I believe. Yep, they, them. Perfect. Great. So this person has a history of being CEO at several major corporations, which immediately tells me this person has a big salary. This is someone who runs like big, giant businesses, which the Trevor Project is a national organization. I'll give them that. So let's see. There's no information about James Black's net worth, which I always think is sketchy because I'm sure this person has a significant net worth. However, you can find the previous, so the 2024 filing is not available yet, but you can find the previous CEO's salary was $622,559. So this CEO made over $500,000 a year. And I do not give a shit if this is normal in these type of organizations. That's ridiculous, in my opinion, because this is a company that's running off of donations and a little bit of federal funding. Why are you spending this much money to pay your people? So there's no information on the net worth. The COO makes in 2023 made about $275,000, so $250,000 for the COO. And then there's other people that make roughly around $200,000 that I found. And then let's go down. Let's just see. I asked it a couple more questions, but didn't get any really relevant things. But it told me, I asked it to give me a breakdown of how the funding is used. So the total revenue, $29.6 million in 2023, and $1 million of government funding, including Helmsley support. And then $53,000 in investment income. That's nothing. So the total expenses are $18.95 million for this. Program services are $9.4 million, which it is saying is 50%, but that's only of the expenses. So this is only like 30% of the revenue is actually used for their services. The other 60 to 70% is being used on like offices and paying people. That to me is just uneven. That's just uneven to me. I think that that's ridiculous. And they were also only getting like $1 million in funding anyway. So I don't think that this is going to hurt anything. But here we're going to see. That's the explanation of that. So here's what I was talking about earlier. Not all funds were spent in that fiscal year. The Trevor Project had a large surplus in fiscal year 2023. Revenue $29.6 million, expenses $18.95 million. Surplus net assets added $10.6 million in surplus. So why is losing $1 million in federal funding going to affect the Trevor Project? It's not. It's not going to affect the Trevor Project. And why are these people making claims that they are underfunded and understaffed, but they have a surplus of $10 million in 2023? And when the 2024 report comes out, we can find out how much of a surplus they had last year. Why do they need federal funding? Why all this fuss over all of this when they have surplus of millions of dollars that they can then use for their services, which they only spend about 30% of their revenue on? How does that make sense? This is what I'm saying. These people do not look into anything. They see a headline from The Guardian or Peak News or CNN, Joy Reid, and then they just go, Jasmine Crockett, AOC, and they just run with it. They get on TikTok, they make their little script, and they read from it with all their white liberal power, trying to save the world from the orange man. And they never looked into any of this. They have no idea that the Trevor Project had $10 million in surplus. I mean, that would cover the next 10 years of their federal funding. Right there in 1 year. Why do they need federal funding? Why would it be more effective to call 988, wait for someone to answer, then press option 3, or maybe you just press option 3 first, I don't know. It just all sounds stupid. Why would you call 988 when you could just call the Trevor Project? Why? That's not necessary. And what that says to me, with all of this money laundering and all this government waste being found out, that this was a way to funnel money into someone's pockets. I don't know who that is yet. Maybe one day I'll find out. But this to me screams fraud. This is fraud. There's a lot of funding that comes from the federal government, and now USAID is shut down, thank God. And a lot of it came from there, going to organizations like the HRC, the Trevor Project, and all those things, all this woke organizations that with all these activists that are trying to groom children. But this screams fraud. This is money laundering. It has to be. The audacity for them to come on camera and spread all this fear and act like this is a horrible thing and this is anti-LGBTQ and all this crap without even knowing that they have surpluses of millions of dollars is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous to me. They're just telling on themselves every single day, and I wish to God that more people would wake up to this. So tell me, what do you guys think about all of this? Leave a comment below. Subscribe if you're not already. If you did subscribe and you're new to the channel, welcome. And I will see you all in the next one.